Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us at the Contemporary Art Workshop by the Agency for Cultural Affairs. And so we're going to begin Session 5, East Asian Art Competitions in Japan. And prior to the opening, I'd like to give you an overview of the features of the webinar you're watching. This webinar is being delivered with simultaneous interpretation in English and Japanese. Please select the desired language by clicking on the interpretation button on the Earth mark at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can select original sound, Japanese or English. And you can use the Q&A functions. If you have a question in text, please send it to us via the Q&A function. If you are watching online and want to ask a question or comment verbally, please send "want to speak" in the Q&A and submit your name and purpose of the speech and speak when the moderator gives you permission to do so. Please note that we cannot respond to all the questions. The raise your hand function and chat posts are not available. An archived video of today's program will be made available on the Art Platform Japan website in early February. Please note that no recording or capturing of the video is permitted. We will now begin Session 5, East Asian Art Competitions and Japan. The moderator for this session is Professor Inaga Shigemi of Kyoto Seika University. And so, Professor Inaga, the microphone is yours. Thank you very much for your introduction. Now, so the title of the session was explained earlier. And first, I would like to explain how it goes. And then so we have an observer today and the committee member of the Contemporary Art Commission. And Professor Kajino Kenji is here with us. And he is going to give you a brief overview of the purpose of this session. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And so this Contemporary Art Workshop Commission member, I am Kajiya. And it's my pleasure to give you an overview of this session. And Art Platform project has begun in 2018 with the purpose of building an international expert network. The workshop has been held on contemporary art. By the end of 2022 fiscal year, and we were supposed to realize international exhibitions and building a global network of art circles. But as you know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and there have been a lot of changes in the environment surrounding us, such as the rescheduling of the exhibitions and the cancellation, and also the impact on the logistics services. And we have reviewed the program. However, 2021, and we are holding this session. And so yesterday, so we had a session and inviting artists who have defied the conditions and organized some events. And this morning, and we also had a session participated by curators and researchers in Japan in the post-pandemic era. And this session in the evening focuses on East Asian art and competitions in Japan. So specifically, the government-sponsored art competitions in East Asia that were held between 1930s to 1945. And in 2014, and so there was the exhibition with this theme held in Fukuoka Asian Art Museum, Fuchu Municipal Museum, and Hyogo Prefectural Art Museum. And the multifaceted the approaches were done for the exhibition. And in this session, so we're going to talk about the Manchuria and also Shinkyo, which was the capital. But to be more specific, Manchuria was a sort of pseudo state of Manchuria, and Shinkyo is Chongkan, and this session will make discussions, and so we're going to disseminate this session online to the rest of the world, and so we're going to discuss why this session will be held, having Japan as the center, and deal with Taiwan and China, Manchuria, and the Korean Peninsula. However, we would like to have this theme, the learning about the past, including the reflections on ourselves. So with this, I would like to pass this back to the moderator. Oh, thank you very much.
So let me move on to the session. So the session, and during the session, so the three and the presenter may make a presentation. So the Ms. Nikita Amiko. And the second presenter is Mr. Wang Uhan. The third presenter is Egawa Yoshihide. And the 20 minutes for your presentation is allocated. And followed by as a commentator, so the Lawan Chain-kun makes a comment and gives some comment, and followed by the brief break. So the discussion session will be held. That's the schedule. So let me invite the first speaker, Nikita Amiko. So the brief introduction. Professor at Otani University, researcher of Korean modern art history, Korean culture history, and colonial history. So the left and great achievement have left. So the transformation was made in the process for introducing art, which is a concept of modern Western Europe in non-Western society, is the basis of the awareness of the problem, and for Ms. Kida. So the research papers include Kida-san will mention on that. Over to you, and Ms. Kida. Thank you for your introduction. My name is Ikeda Amiko, from the professor of Otani University on the study of Korean art exhibition. This is the content of my presentation. First, I touch on the study on Korean art exhibition after 2014, and then the Korean art exhibition scene in the writing left by the Kato Shorinjin, Japanese artist in Korea. And the 3, 4, 5, and I refer to the contents. The first, the study achievement in Korea, and the first, the study on the modern art has been focused and emphasized, and as you see, and so many articles, academic journal. And the excavating, discovering the new materials, and the interpersonal exchanges with the Japanese scholars, and can worth and to pay attention. And here in Japan, the academic achievement in Korea has been translated into Japanese and published. And number 2, this is a study about the calligraphy department and the craft movement. And number 3, and the young the researchers are moving back and forth between Japan and Korea. There have been emerging those scholars. And what about myself? And then so I'm very much interested in around 2000 and studying abroad in Korea. And there is a gap between the concept of Japanese and the Korean the art history. So the difference in the concept of art, the art is the theme of my articles. And the Shorinjin, and so the posthumous manuscript by Kato Shorinjin is a theme of my study as well. And as you see, so the colonial rule, so that they are the representative Japanese artists back in colonial rule, and the blue and the blue is from the Japanese National and Art Art University, and the red. So the Kato Shorinjin is awarded artist in an imperial the exhibition. Kato Shorinjin was born in Anan City in Fukushima Prefecture, and he left he continued his work his academic work in Waseda University, and due to the business of his father, emigrated into the Korea, and where he learned Japanese the painting technique and shimitoum. And he established his career as an artist. And he was awarded in 2024 and awarded, and he got given the status of counselor in Korean academy. And when he went back to Japan after the World War II, and he left a lot of the writings. So let me focus on the peninsula, Korean peninsula, the art world, and it's a memoir, and the 479 the pieces of the papers with and the reveal and the what was the Korean and the art and the world was. So this is the memoir. So the memoir is picked up for the first time, and in the contents, as you see. So this is he served as a counselor of the Korean art and exhibit, and he left a lot of writings on that. And this is his awarded painting, and his the atelier and studio was seen. And another photo. So how he and his achievement is. So it is see the peak when he was living in Korea in Shinkin. And as you see, Mr. Kato was a really indispensable person in the Korean art world, art history. So it's a memoir, and so the feature of the memoir is this is this is really a detailed description about that. And as a person who got involved in, and the minute and the details and about the exhibitions and the art academy, and not only Japanese but also Korean artists were covered. And despite being an artist and the painter, and he showed an attitude to understand the traditional Korean calligraphy, and some uncovered and the details had been discovered. And in particular, in the study of Korean modern the art. So this is the abolition of the calligraphy, and instead an establishment of craft. And this is his description. And first, and so for the study, so the abolition of the calligrapher, it has been analyzed as a part of the art policy and of the authority, but according to his description, and that has been focused and emphasized in 1931, and there was a reform of the structure. And in the 11th the exhibition and the abolishment, so the Department of Calligraphy abolished and replaced by the craft department, so that it runs as a dispute between Koyama Shotaro and Okakura Tenshin, and the calligraphy or the ink painting is not an art. And so that in the same space, and if the calligraphy or ink painting is displayed, and it create a kind of chaos, and sometimes it's not compatible with the colored painter, so that which is described. And the second, the reasons for that. And the younger generation and Korean painters made a request, a really strong request. So the governor, as a reconciliation policy, and so that they emphasized, they valued the calligraphy and ink painting. So that this is the totally contrary to the traditional idea. And the third reason. So compared to the painting which requires time and efforts, and the calligraphy is easily completed, and this was presented by young the Korean painter. And lastly, the reason, so the generation changes. So one of the reasons for the abolition of the calligraphy department. So the judge of the calligraphy, Kim Ryo-jin, so they passed away, deceased, and that was at the timing of the generational change. So that is acknowledged by Kato, and abolition. So after the abolishment of the calligraphy department, and the craft department was established. So not to replaced by the craft department, and so that there was a time interval. And as we have seen, and so the government, so they fully recognize the importance of the ink painting and calligraphy, and immediately after the colonial rule, and so that there was the calligraphy was on a common ground and for the Japan and the Korean exchanges, and there was a controversy and between the Japan and so that the controversy, so the in general, so that so the calligraphy and the disrupt and the atmosphere of the space. So the first of all, so the Korean artists were not good at colored painting. That is the view by the Kato. So we need to take a look at that. So that this is the perspectives on the calligraphy and the ink painting. So under the colonial rule, so that there was it used to be really an active between the exchanges between Japanese and China and regarding calligraphy, and Tansei Doko Kai. So that it's the circle. So that it was participated by Shimizu Toun and a few the calligrapher, and whereas from the Korean, and there were several and a lot of one and participated and despite the language barrier. And so the perspectives on that. So the discomfort or uncomfortable and for the Korean art, so the maybe the Korean flavor, or so the really so the too excessive and too expressive and too much and too meticulated. And on the other side, and some Japanese artists really appreciated that ink painting as well as calligraphy. And let's look at the works of the ink brush painting. So that this is from a catalog of the. So that this was this was presented by an Oriental painting. So that, for example. And so the figures depicted. So that this is the first exhibition and displayed. So the expression, so the but at the facial expression is too much. And as a reference, on the right hand side, so that this is the Choi Yeon-shin, the representative the artist in Korea. And so the Korean calligraphy and ink brush painting. So the Japanese and the concept of art introduced and what and effect and caused. And one of them is this is King Uno. So he is Oriental painters, and as a Korean painter, and he was the first awarded in the the Korean art exhibition. He introduced a Japanese taste and of a Japanese painting taste, and sometimes he's criticized as a pro-Japan. And Kim Uno, in case of Kim Uno, so the first exhibitions, so that this is the priest. So not a priest. The woman is dressing like a priest and dancing, and compared to the 18th exhibition. So according to Kato, so Kim Uno and originally, so he was. And he learned from the Lee Do-yeon, and a very famous artist in Korea. And after that, and he learned in Tokyo, and so he lost the flavor of the Korean taste. And after that, he highly recognized and highly evaluated. And how to evaluate Korean paintings is an issue. And so that I myself and put together. And first of all, so the Korean scholars, so on the Korean and calligraphy and ink painting and Japanese and painting, there is a gap between that. So that it has been considered as the issue. So the maybe discomfort or uncomfortableness, of the taste of the paint, and has been Japanized, and in order to deepen the understanding of Korean paintings, so that those calligraphy and ink paintings should be conceived conceived in a different way. So the colored painting is a colored painting, and the Korean artist is not good at colored painting. So that you see, so the portrait is a traditional art in Korea, and even in the today's, so the South Korea as well as in the North Korea. So that those awareness and being not good at colored painting has been existing, and so that is not another context of the art mainstream. So the fifth item is a newspaper and interpersonal network. So that in 1920s and since then, the Shinkin, the daily. So the Tada and in for and Sinkin the daily news and another one. And so the Tada Kizo. So the Tada Kizo is a reporter of Shinkin Daily News, and he's been picked up several times in the course of the study. And he's the reporter Tada. So he and Kakuto and other Japanese artists living in Korea was annoyed with the article written by Tada. And first of all, Tada Kizo. So was working in collaboration with Yamada Shinichi, and he is the brother-in-law of Kayama-tan. And he is very close to the Tokyo Art University, and he has a patron of the political influential people. And Tada Kizo, really has an aspiration to become a painter, and he himself applied for the exhibition. And Kato Shorinjin is indicated in the blue circle, and the Tadakizo is the red one. So this is the celebration for the wedding and of Tada's the brother-in-law, and very the prestigious members that have seen in the picture. And Murakami Kyoji, the Korean newspaper, himself the painted a picture as well. And Murakami Kyoji, for him, the very contrary to the Tada, and the Kato has a kind of liking, and as you see, this is the work painted by Murakami Kyoji. And Tadakizo and the collaboration between Tadakizo and Yamada Shinichi, and the confront between Toda and Yamada Shinichi, and the graduates of Tokyo National Art University. So the next year of the Korean the Art Museum, 1923, Kogensha the Society. And the Korean, this is a kind of a contrast, and the Academy of the Korean and Art and Association. So that those they have no the academic background as regarding art, and then the Kato and others immigrated into the Korea. And Toda, Yoda Shinichi, and the relationship got worse later. And those, the Tadakizo was the beside another the situation. And this is the summary. So this what is the rediscovered through the writing left by Kato. And first of all, in studying Korean modern art, the materials and how to excavate or discover the new materials. So that this manuscript written by artist himself, and has a really important meanings, and he left really important writings as well. And the third one. And let me skip the two. And the third one, so that I would like to emphasize that the evaluation and appreciation of the work and Kim Uno, so the Japanization Japanization has been valued by Kato, but the question of the Japanization is improvement of the work and the value. And the influence of the exhibition and the review presented in the newspaper and should be considered as well. and they need to reaffirm the difference of the value between Japan and Korea. And so that is associated with the number 3. So that when you talk about art, fine art, so they need to reaffirm the difference between the value between Japan and Korea, and how to deal with the ink painting and calligraphy, and what about the colored picture. So that this is directly linked to and how to think about the colonial history, colonial culture, colonial policy. So the Japan imposed unconsciously the value and Korea. Let me conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. So Kato Shorinjin was explained, and now he is now re-evaluated internationally, and he has left many good works, and he is well-known poet. And some overseas students have studied the works of that artist. And so Kato's works and Nandaimon, and so after the World War II, and Kato and so worked on it. And so I'm not going to summarize it, but that was a very well-rounded presentation. Thank you. And especially, and then the black ink was used, and so that was in South Korea. And then how to work with colored painting has been discussed. And so Ming Dynasty of China had the same challenge. And so Chu Waifeng and Hu Baoxie. So between these two artists, so after the China's government changed, and how the traditional Chinese ink work should be maintained. There were a lot of discussions about it, and so that was a very valuable point that she made. And journalists from Japan, and so what he said just created a stir. So we would like to have a deeper discussion afterwards. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now, so let me call upon the second presenter, and Mr. Oh Wan Yung-hen, and so he graduated from Yamaguchi University's graduate school, and after that, she continued his research. So until March 2021, and he was at Yamaguchi University and studying the East Asian studies and East Asian collaboration and research and promotion council. He was quite active, and now he is now the lecturer at the College of Fine Arts at the Guangxi Normal University of China. Now, so the Mr. Wan has made remarkable work in this field. Now, Mr. Wan, the floor is yours. Well, hello, and I am from the Guangxi Normal University College of Fine Arts, and I am the Wan Yu-bin, and I would like to give my presentation. And I would like to, talk about the Taiwan art exhibitions. And there are many the theories to it, and so So this exhibition was shortly named the Tai-10, and so in the first place, so that started after Taiwan was became the Japanese rule, and then the final decision to start this exhibition was made by the Governor General's office in Taiwan. And so there were some views about this exhibition as a tool for the assimilation policy of the Japanese government in terms of culture. And so there are internal elements and then external elements to this. And so this, the Tai-10 has a significant meaning, and there are two stories about how it came about. And one is it was started by the fellow countrymen of the Governor General, and secondly, and it was this, and so because of that, the background and the significance and purpose and position and nature had to be re-examined. And first about the Titans, the establishment. And so in 1927, the first Titan opened. So that spread the shock among people in the cultural circles and art circles. So that exhibition marked a turning point for Taiwanese culture. And the Japanese modern culture absorbed the essence of Western culture. And so the circle of art had already had a position in the culture, and so Japanese, the modern, the government regarded art as a symbol of modern civilization, and at the same time, the power to build the nation, the culture. In 1876, the Ministry of Work established the Art College, and by the inviting experts from Europe, in return sending young students to Europe to learn Western style of art. In 1887, Tokyo National College of Art was established with some authority from the government. And at the same time, and so in order to guide the direction of the development of art of Japan, and so 1907, the Ministry of Education backed the exhibition was held, and later the Imperial art exhibition was held as a successor organization, and so it was a regular art promotion organization, and together with that, the commission of the judges were developed, and so. In the art world of Taiwan, Ishikawa Kinichiro and Shiotsuki Toho, Gohara Koto, Kinoshita Seiko, those four became the center and made a proposal to the Taiwan's Governor General about the establishment of the art competition. And there are some stories to it. And next, please. Yes, next, please. And so while there is a theory of the theory saying that this exhibition was started at the proposal of the fellow countrymen of the Governor General, but Mori Mineko completely rejected this theory. And for your reference, the Governor General at that time, Kamiyama, was from Yamaguchi Prefecture, and Ishikawa was Shizuoka Prefecture. Gohara and Kinoshita were from Nagano Prefecture. So then, what was the conditions behind the establishment of Tai-10, and the background of Tai-10's establishment should be delved further. And October 27th, 1927, and Taiwan Daily issued a special volume centering on the Taiwan art exhibition. And so in that special volume, there was a specific writing about it. And so please look at the red letters. And so in light of the rapid development of art of Taiwan, and the volunteers of the Taiwan's the artists and suggested the opening of the art exhibition. And in 1926, sometime around December, and so they got together several times to have a meeting and decided to establish the permanent organization to run the art exhibition. And because of this, the authority's opinion was also converted, and the Governor General's office heard this the movement, and so they were completely convinced to open this art exhibition. On October 27th, 1927, the first Taiten was held at Kabayama Shogakko, Kabayama Elementary School in Taipei. And Ishiguro Hidehiko, at that time the Cultural and Education Bureau Chief, recalls that event. And this Taiwan, the art exhibition, the competition was started as a project of a Board of Education, and with the purpose of the providing artists for the appreciation of art and study, and at the same time for the general public to cultivate their aesthetic senses. And further, and Shiotsuki Zenkichi recalls about the establishment of Taiten in 1933. And so they had the meeting to consult with the possibility of establishing an organization to run a Taiwan art exhibition. And although it was started by a private sector's suggestion, and later the responsibility was handed to the public bodies. So as I said earlier, and the volunteer Ishikawa, Gohara, Shiotsuki, and Osawa made a plan for Taiten. So Taiten came into being at the proposal of the private sector individuals. Then the decision was handed over to the Governor General, and as the consultation continued, then the Governor General have started to show his willingness to open the Taiwan art exhibition. However, the actual organizing body was not the Governor General office, but the Board of Education of Taiwan. And Toho Bijutsu, the journal in 1939, carried an article on the significance of the Taiwan art exhibition. I would like to cite an excerpt from that. And here, the copy of that is shown on this slide. Please look at the red letters. And so among the learned individuals, both public and private, and understood the need to organize an annual Taiwan art exhibition, as it will contribute to raise awareness about the aesthetic senses, and also the promote the art as a hobby for ordinary individuals. And Ishiguro Hidehiko, the bureau chief of the Culture and Education Bureau at the Taiwan Governor General's office, also stated, and Taiwan's the Board of Education responded to the need of the society. And this fiscal year, and will start this Taiwan art exhibition and as an annual event. And so at the event, the work of art from around the Taiwanese islands will be gathered, collected, and be shown to the general public. in order to raise awareness of art among the general public, and at the same time to make positive contribution to the advancement of the art world of Taiwan. And the purpose of the establishment of Taiwan was to disseminate art as a hobby for ordinary public, but at the same time to provide opportunities for individual the artists in Taiwan to appreciate each other's artworks. However, some research said as Yan, Lee, and Shah, and criticized this event as this effort is a sort of an assimilation effort by the ruling Japanese government, and the Taiwan art exhibition. And so while it was aimed at the cultivating harmonious, peaceful mind, aesthetic mind among the general public, but at the same time it has another aspect, which is the assimilation or imperialization of the island of Taiwan. And Yan and Lee and Shah, yes, indeed. And there is one aspect of it, which is the assimilation policy. However, the government's policies does not always they directly lead to the grassroots level activities of the ordinary citizens. And I have written in my graduation thesis in the local color of the art in Taiwan under the Japanese rule, and so identity and then the creative senses are the ones that the Taiwanese artists had as their innate quality, and so Taiten. So therefore, I would like to try to examine the role that Taiten played. So Taiten was organized by Taiwan Board of Education. Why was that? So Nakamura said that it must have been regarded the Board of Education, which was at the forefront of the culture and education policy or Japanization the education policy by the suzerain nation. So it's natural to consider the education board as the competent authority to organize the Taiten. And so the Taiwan Board of Education's purport of establishment is to disseminate the use of Japanese language and education and to promote the related system from Japan. So after Taiten was held, and so they carried this content in the education. So this education, the facility in terms of art. And in 1902, and Taiwan, the education board has started to develop branches in local areas of Taiwan in order to disseminate education in different regions of Taiwan. After Taiten was held, and so Board of Education of Taiwan, the branch offices increased every year, and so they had their own the art exhibitions locally every year, and especially places like Hsinchu and from 1928 and Kaohsiung from 1930, and so that does it mean the Taiten organized by Taiwan Board of Education? So can it be regarded as the education exhibition for the entire island? And So Taiwan Times in 1936 carried an article that said the Board of Education, which is funded by the group of teachers and lecturers, they hold this the exhibition, and they may to transfer this activity to private sector or public sector, and the education body may be directly related to the lecturers or teachers exhibition or school-based art exhibitions. And so therefore Titan was holding the similar purpose as Taiwan, the Board of Education. And Ishikawa Kinichiro or Shio Tsuki are engaged in the educational activities, and they have started to regard art as one of the disciplines of education. And however, so it is an exhibition, but at the same time an art competition. And after the second Titan, and experts of the Taiwan, the Governor General's office, and the Japanese the artists started to serve as the jury of these exhibitions. And so the speciality of the art and the nature of the education of Titan, and these elements able to be viewed as the successful element of Titan. And during the Japanese rule, and so Titan may not have enough influence and authority to the development of art in Taiwan. And Shiotsuki, the Toho, who was quite important in preparing for the organization of the Titan, together with those involved in the Taiwan's art circles. So Titan's the nature of government-led event has been rejected. So in this background, and so social status of Taiwanese painters was established, and most the Taiwanese painters have developed their careers under this or in this environment. And so the Taiwan Governor General's office, they implemented the new style of art education, and the Taiwan the Board of Education organized the Titan in 1927. They both provided new opportunities for the art circle of Taiwan and the Japanese art circle, and then the Taiwan Governor General's office. The exercised influence over the education and art of Titan on Taiwan. So as a policy, and that was seen as one of the means of cultural assimilation by the Japanese rulers, and at the same time used as the means to extol the outcome of the colony's public's education.
And thank you, and a very detailed answer to the presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Wan. So that in Taiwan, and the situations in Taiwan and was described and explained, and for education, and some names have been raised, and Kenichiro, and Shiotsuki Toho, and so that they so that they gave a lot of impact and influence. And on those figures, the studies and the research has been ongoing here in Japan, and in your place, so that it is important to nurture and so that who is following them. And in addition to education, and in particular in case of Taiwan, so the maybe so the relationship between and with the the market and how much and they have grown, they had been growing as a market. So it can be it should be compared with the situations in Korean Peninsula as well. And in particular, and in 1920s and the 30s, so that in the Taiwan particular, so the information about the Western art and has been brought via the Japanese language, and which had a great impact and there as well. So that your the doctoral and the thesis and it would be published. I'm be looking forward to reading it and so that in Japanese as well. Thank you. So that now, let me move on to the third presenter. So that Mr. Egawa Yoshihide, working at the Tokushima Modern Art Museum, and I've learned a lot from Egawa-san, and so that maybe the involved in the opening of the Tokushima Modern Art Museums, and and he has been researching the cultural exchange between Japan, Europe, and East Asia, and so many achievement. And the Satsuma Jiruhachi, so the artist in Paris, and he curated exhibitions and École de Paris, and Japanese artists, among others, and Manchu, and Manchuria, and he is an expert and a leading expert on the Manchuria. So now over to you, Mr. Egawa. So thank you for your introduction. I'm Egawa. So I would like to report on the Manchuk art exhibition. As you may know, the Manchuk art exhibition, and hereafter was a public exhibition held by the Japanese puppet government of the former Manchukuo in Changchun, before the end of World War II. So the Manchukuo and Japan's the canton the 1938 to 1941 when Manchukuo collapsed due to Japan's defeat in the war. 8 exhibitions were held. In this report, I will discuss the history of the 8 Manchukuo exhibitions, and in particular, how the exhibitions changed under the influence of Japan's colonial and cultural policies. However, I would like to point out a problem with terminology. At the time, as Kajiya Sensei mentioned, is a terminology. At the time, Japan called the puppet regime in northeastern China Manchukuo, and in Japan. And Changchun was made the capital of Manchukuo and renamed as Xinjiang. So needless to say, and there is no justification for calling it Manchukuo or Xinjiang. However, as there is no end to the number of annotations that can be added to each story, so that there will be no end to do that. So please allow me to use the term Manchukuo or Xinjiang, or the founding of Manchukuo, as it was used in those days. So on this occasion only. So that this is so the location, and the location is shown. So the Liaotung Peninsula, so the former Canton, so that this is on the land on the property, and the red so the line can be seen. So the northern part is so the Manchuk, and so the Manchurian and the railway. So that along that, and you can see the Xinjiang and the Chongjiang, and so the Halpin and the Jialin. And so that this, and before I get into the history of a Manchuk exhibition, let me introduce the exhibition that was the predecessor of the Manchuk exhibition. And so that there were two of them, so that we can see things to some extent. The first one was Manchurian Art Academy exhibition held in Shenzhen in October 1933, the year after the founding of Manchuk. So that this is on the photo of the exhibition venue. And what you are looking at now is document that records the results of the preparatory meeting for the Manchurian Art so the Academy exhibition. Reading this, you can see the Japanese bureaucrats in Manchuk were working on the groundwork even before the preparatory meeting. It can be said that the opening of a national exhibition in Shenzhen was so the Shenzhen, so the national exhibition. So the having that on a national exhibition in Shenzhen was one of the first projects that Manchuk took up immediately after the founding of the country. However, the exhibition was cancelled after one session. It was not possible to get the cooperation of the Japanese artists living in the various regions of Manchuk. So to cut a long story short, the artists held an exhibition called the Dalian Art Exhibition in Dalian, Kanto Province, to compete with the Manchurian Art Exhibition. Dalian Art Exhibition was a great success, attracting exhibitors from the Manchuk side as well. At the time of the founding of Manchuk, Dalian was a place where the largest number of artists lived and where art activities flourished. The second so the predecessor was the 1937 art exhibition in commemoration of the imperial rescript of visiting Japan. This exhibition served as a basis for the Manchuk exhibition that began the following year and is directly connected to the history of the Manchuk exhibition. The term imperial rescript of visiting Japan may sound unfamiliar to you, but it refers to the imperial rescript issued by Emperor Puyi on the return from a visit to Japan in 1935. In the imperial rescript, so that this is a part of that, Puyi told the people of Manchuria and Japan that we are of one mind and one spirit with His Majesty the Emperor of Japan, and we are of one mind and one virtue with our friends in Japan. For the Japanese living in northeastern China, the imperial rescript was particularly meaningful as it confirmed the legitimacy of their presence there. And 2 years later, Manchuk designated on May the 2nd, the day of the imperial rescript was issued, as the anniversary of the imperial visit to Japan. And various commemorative events were held throughout the country. So including the art exhibition, the commemorating the imperial rescript was positioned as one of the commemorative events, and including and the speech contest among so the school children and other commemorative events were held. So it seemed that they had some disagreement before the exhibition was held, but as a result, Japanese artists from all over the Kanto and Manchurian regions participated in the exhibition, as well as Chinese artists and to lesser extent Russian artists. For the first time, Manchuk realized an exhibition that integrated Manchuk and the Kanto province as well as the various ethnic groups. The main reason for the success of the exhibition was the fact that the Japanese people living in the area had no objection to the imperial rescript of visiting Japan. This is the main reason. However, this was not the only reason. The artists from each region were asked to select a representative from among themselves, and the representative was asked not only to organize the exhibition, but also to appraise the works. Exhibitors are also subsidized for the transportation of the works. They did so everything they could do to invite people to exhibit their works. So why do the Manchukuo government go to such lengths to hold a national scale exhibition in Shenzhen? For one thing, it was inconvenient for Manchukuo, which is an independent country by definition. So the Shenzhen, instead of Shenzhen, so the Dalian was the central city of fine art. So that is really inconvenient for Manchukuo. So not only the reason. So the province instead of the capital city in Shenzhen, this was not the only reason. An art exhibition held in the capital city was probably necessary for Manchukuo to present itself as a modern cultural nation. So the modern cultural nation. So this was also true and for the Japanese government behind Manchukuo. This slide is a decision document and from the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs when it paid for the transportation and accommodation expenses of Fujishima Takeji, Yasui Sotaro, and Matsubayashi Keigetsu, who traveled to Henshin as advisors and for the exhibition. So it was covered by the Japanese government even after. So it seemed that for Japanese government, an art exhibition held in the capital of Manchukuo was necessary and to produce a peaceful and cultural colonial rule. Incidentally, looking around at the East Asian countries that were under Japanese colonial rule, Manchukuo was not the only country that held art exhibitions. The Korean Peninsula and Taiwan are of course among them, but in 1939, Beijing held the Asia Art Exhibition, and from 1940, the Mongolian Union Autonomous Government held the Mongolian Art Exhibition. In this way, it's seen that art exhibitions, not only Manchukuo, but were one of the basic policies of Japan's colonial policy, not only Manchukuo. Now, let's move on to the main topic, the history of the 8 Manchukuo exhibitions. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the character of the 8 exhibition changed greatly due to the changes in Japan's colonial and cultural policies. For the sake of convenience, I will divide my talk into 3 periods. The first is the first to the 3rd exhibition. In the first exhibition, there was, let me share. The representative thing. In the first exhibition, there was a sharp decrease in the number of exhibits from them compared to the previous year's exhibition, and commemorating the emperor's visit to Japan. This was directly attributable to abolition of the system of local art representatives that existed at the commemorative exhibition. The Namnam and the South Manchurian Art Association, which was formed by Mukden artists, so they demanded that they should be involved in the exhibition and the local art representative system to be reinstated. And when this was refused, they called on the members not to exhibit their works. Mukden, like Dalian, had a long history of Japanese artists' activities. And aside from Dalian in the Canton region, it was the most active place in Manchuria for Japanese artists. As a result, Manchuk national exhibition authorities had a hard time dealing with the situation and revised the system of local art representatives by renaming them as art committee members in the second exhibition. For the third exhibition, the Manchuk national exhibition was held in Shinkin and then moved to Mukden. I have given only one example of incident, but in the period from the first to the third exhibition, various conflicts surfaced. This was a time, and so that when the Manchukuo exhibition was busy trying to bring in artists and from all over the world, all over the region. It should be noted that Manchukuo exhibition was not only about regional integration. Manchukuo's philosophy as harmony among the 5 ethnic groups, Japanese, Koreans, Manchus, Mongols, and Han Chinese, so it was necessary not to bring in Japanese artists from each region, but also to create a peaceful coexistence among the various ethnic groups. So the next slide, please. This was best illustrated by the number of special award winners at the second exhibitions and highlighted in a different color, as you can see. So the 2 Japanese and 2 Chinese artists were selected for each category in the second exhibition, so symmetrically. As expected, and the Japanese artists raised questions about this. And a letter of inquiry was sent to Manchurian Ministry to Nationalities. However, when interviewed by the newspapers, an official of the exhibition said that due to the national situation in Manchukuo, it was impossible to hold the exhibition only with works by Japanese artists. Of course, we must give them the arts. So the Noda Kyuho, who was invited as an advisor for the second exhibition, and also said that the authorities had a secret intention to give preferential treatment to Chinese artists, and that is why they added about 20 selected works to the exhibition. It can be said that the period from the first to the third exhibition was a time when, and so that they were busy trying to incorporate artists from various regions and to create a friendly coexistence between the various ethnic groups in order to establish the exhibition in society. Next was the period between the 4th and 7th exhibitions. In Japan, the Cabinet Intelligence Bureau was established at the end of 1940, the year before the 4th exhibition, and they began to control culture in an extensive manner. And the Sino-Japanese War was getting bogged down, and the Pacific War was breaking out a year later. That there was an urgent need to develop a wartime system for the Japanese government. In conjunction with this development in Japan, the Manchukuo government also underwent organizational reforms. The Manchukuo government strengthened its control of culture by consolidating the work of culture control, which had been scattered among various departments, into the Public Relations Department of the General Affairs Agency. And so the General Affairs Agency, so that at the beginning of the year, in March 1941, so the published a document entitled Guideline for the Guidance of Arts and Culture, which clearly stated the ideal state of art and culture in Manchukuo and the policy for fostering it. The art and culture, and the Hakko Ichiyu, the spirit of Hakko Ichiyu, a slogan used by Japan during the war to justify its invasion of Asia. So it says, the art culture of Manchukuo is a result of the weaving of Japanese art culture as a warp and the art culture of the various ethnic groups as a weft. What we see here is not harmony among the 5 ethnic groups, so the principle of the foundation of Manchuria, and about the idea of Japanese superiority and Japan-centricism. From the first exhibitions onward, various revisions were made to the Manchuk art exhibition under the guidance of the guidelines. For example, the system of local art representatives was abolished and after the fourth exhibition. So in order to reflect the intention of the government directly, from the fifth exhibition, posters and other designs were accepted in the craft divisions. And the exhibition hall, the venue, was lined with posters calling for increased production in the mining industry and the health promotion of war spirit. There are many other changes, but the Japanese and the attitude of Japanese superiority has been the clearly seen. For example, the fourth section of the exhibition, calligraphy, and it used to be called the legal calligraphy section in the Chinese style, but from the fifth exhibition, it was renamed the calligraphy section in the Japanese style. The number of special prize and the minister's prize winners by ethnicity has also clearly changed. Up until the third exhibition, there were always Chinese and Japanese winners in every category. Although the numbers were not consistent, however, from the fourth exhibitions onward, the number of Chinese artists decreased drastically. Looking back at the relationship between Japan and Manchukuo at the time, the war situation worsened. The Manchukuo was expected to play a stronger role as Japan's defense line against the Soviet Union. And inextricably linked to this, the dominance of Japan and the leadership of Japan were being emphasized. It can be said that the changes in the Manchukuo exhibition reflected these changes in the social situation. The next slide, please. Finally, let's take a look at the 8th Manchukuo exhibition. However, there were hopelessly few materials left about the 8th exhibition. The exhibition site was already set up, but soon after the Soviet invasion, it was not opened to the public because the exhibition ended in chaos, and that there are, unfortunately, there were no catalogs and photos of the exhibition site, newspaper reports, or any other materials that can help us. What we do know is that the 8th exhibition was held under the guidelines for decisive battle art and literature that were issued in November 1944. The decisive battle art and literature guidelines were further development of the art and literature guideline, and the stipulated in private art groups were to cease the activities and that art was to made into a force to be reckoned with. The 8th exhibition held under the guideline of this decisive battle art literature guideline was renamed and the special Manchukuo wartime art exhibition, and the open call for works was stopped and only works by artists nominated by Minister of Education were accepted. Accordingly, the awarding of the special prize and the minister's prize was abolished. In Japan, the Ministry of Education art exhibition held in the autumn of the previous year was renamed, and the Ministry of Education's wartime special art exhibition, and artists were selected to participate. Aligned with this, the Manchukuo art exhibition was renamed. This is all we know about the 8th exhibition. The very few, one of very few. That this is all we know about the 8th exhibition. This is a brief summary of the history of the Manchukuo art exhibition. Just to the institutional part, I would like to repeat that the Manchukuo exhibition was born as part of the Japanese government's colonial policy and changed in line with the changes in Japan's cultural and colonial policies. Let me conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Egawa, for your presentation. Well, so Manchuria and pseudo-Manchurian state, and there, so he gave us presentations about the significance of having an art exhibition there. Now, so that contains a lot of issues, and so opening an exhibition in Shinkyun, but then it was the made a place, in a makeshift area, and then there was a film that showed the construction of the new capital, and so I saw the film, and then there were so many the sites that were under construction. So in contrast to that, Dalian had been developed much earlier but colonized by many Japanese residents, and then so Dalian was competing against the Japan. And also with Shinjin and Dalian was the head-to-head in order to compete about the influence. And then so there was another point he made, and then so there was this comparison between that area and the Xinjiang and Vietnam and also the Taiwan. And the third point, and show the calligraphy or the writings in. So South Korea also had a similar style of art, and the calligraphy is quite valued. And so if you are a warrior, and so you had to be able to draw calligraphy, and so in Japan there was also a question. So when Japanese imperial army started to make invasion into the Korean peninsula and the Chinese continent, and so how we can position the significance of show or the calligraphy. And so in the discussion, I would also like to include these points as the elements of the discussion, but we have to follow the timeline. And now it is about time for me to invite Ms. Rawan Chai-kun. And based on the three presenters' presentation, I would like to have her comments. And Ms. Rawan Chai-kun Toshiko, and needless to say, because she's well known among you, and she is the curator of the Fukuoka Asian Art Museum, and so the Asian Art the Museum in Fukuoka is one of the most unique art museum in Japan, focusing on Asian art. And since its inception, she's been heavily involved in the planning of exhibitions. And she has a lot of activities, and she has the idea of Nanyang and China Dream, and in Taiwan, and and also about the Taiwan under Japanese rule and the art scene in Taiwan. But she's going to give us her overview of one of the most important exhibitions that she got involved in. And Fukuoka just organizes Triennale, and I have gotten involved in it. And she has been taking care of me and other artists quite well. And so that helped Fukuoka expand its network throughout Asia. Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. And now, in 2014, so we organized the modern art in the government-sponsored art competition, Tokyo, Seoul, Taipei, and Changchun. And thank you very much for your contribution to this. And then, so I cannot recall everything clearly because it's quite a distance away. But this is a very great opportunity for me to look back on what we did in 2014. I was quite impressed with each presenter's presentations because they had very keen eyes on the looking at things. And so Art Platform project of Bunka-cho, the main purpose is to have art and develop art based on the communication. And I'm involved in the work of art on a daily basis. So from my standpoint, I would like to give you my viewpoint. Next slide, please. Yes. So first of all, and so why? So we have come up with this exhibition focusing on the government-sponsored art competition. So after 1990s, and so Taiwan and Korea started research and surveys about art scenes in the Japanese colonial era. But in many cases, and those exhibitions were held in individuals, and there have not been any attempts to have a bird's eye view of the whole thing. So therefore, so we thought it may be beneficial to organize an exhibition in order to provide an overview of the government, the organized the art competitions. So therefore, so we decided to shed light on the government-sponsored art competitions which were held during those days of Japanese rule in China and Korea. And Dr. On said that Taiwan's exhibition was held. As far as I remember, it was held until 1936 and 36, excuse me. And so, from the viewpoint of the Japanese colonial rule, and so the Japanese government's art competitions style was transplanted to China, Korea, and Taiwan. So those were closely related to the assimilation policy or policy of the colonial rule of the Japanese government at that time. So there is an agreement about this policy of the Japanese government, and Egawa-san analyzed this area from three different the generations or the time period, and he also stated that the number of the Chinese artists who got selected, and so as the number of exhibitions were held. But so this trend was a little different from other areas like Taiwan and Korea. But so the Japanese government had different purposes. But then separately to the Japanese government's main intention, so there are some benefits to the local artists. For example, they were given opportunities to show their work of art, and so their position as an artist was assured, and also the opportunity for young and up-and-coming their artists to learn and hone their skills, and also to rediscover the values, and also the pursuit of self-expression. And so therefore, those government the sponsored the art competition was used as the forum for expression for artists in the colonies. So including Bunten and Teiten, and those exhibitions had to be viewed separately when I tried to analyze those. So Bunten and Teiten's the presentation were not precisely made today. So this is my only regret. And then this is the overview of our exhibition. So we studied about the trend of 96 artists, 136 pieces of art collected from 1910s through 1945, and now, so we prioritized the ones that were selected for the Japanese government-sponsored art competitions, and if the enough number of pieces of art were not collected, we have selected those who had similar the expressions or who had similar styles of those that won the government-sponsored the artworks. However, so there were some circles in the art scenes who still had some kind of objections to cooperate with us, because so we were studying about the era of the Japanese rule, and based on that Japanese rule, the exhibition was supposed to be held. That could not be helped. So we had traveling exhibitions to Asian art museum, starting from us, and then Fuchu, and travel to Hyogo. And so these are the layout of the floors and walls, and so those the exhibitions had to be the independent. So therefore, we had to avoid a viewpoint, so as to have Japan as a center, and then the government-sponsored art competitions in the Japanese colony in the back. So therefore, the Japanese corner was placed in the background. So many of the visitors in the Asian art museum in Japan were more attracted to Asian contemporary art. So therefore, I made the introductory remark about this. And so now, we have some questions and challenges about the government-backed exhibitions of those days, and there are many challenges, and I would like to share with you main things. So the big one is that Manchuria, the exhibitions in Manchuria, so surviving pieces of art was quite hard to find. And then Egawa-san, actually the catalogs, only 3 catalogs were issued out of 8 exhibitions. And now the research works centered around the system that supported the exhibitions. So therefore, if we are to study this government-backed art exhibitions in the Japanese colonies, and we just had to show the related pieces of art, and then just the display of the panel. So as Mr. Wan is with us, and so if you have found any activities or movement towards this the studies, please let us know afterwards when we have a discussion. And so keep the slide on, please. And so if I may add some more comment. So Kida-san's presentation and calligraphy of the Chosun, or the Korea's exhibition, and the Bunten, and also the Titan did not have the calligraphy's exhibition. So therefore, the Korean Peninsula's exhibition had characteristics of featuring the calligraphy, but the calligraphy, and then the shikunshi, the 4 major flowers and blossoms in Asian art. So because those are closely related to the calligraphy, so I wanted to see the relations between those shikunshi, or the 4 major flowers and blossoms, with calligraphy. If we have time for the discussion, I'd like to hear that. And about, so there were some issues about the exhibitions. Now the so modern art exhibitions are held in Korea and Taiwan, but then so they were individually held and then individually closed. So including the newly found works of art, so it may be more desirable to have those exhibitions as international exhibitions, like traveling exhibitions overseas among those countries. And the third point is the challenge in terms of the history of art and local color or local flavor. For many years, we have discussed about local color of local flavor of the artworks, and so those have been introduced. But then, so in terms of the content, the modern art, and so I was attracted to the artwork which had the flavor of the whatever China or Korea or Taiwan. But then, so if we are to select some pieces of art and say, well, this is the Chinese flavor or Taiwanese flavor, and so, but this is kind of risky because we are just unilaterally selecting them as the artwork with a local color, and so without knowing our judgment is right or wrong. And what we have found from those exhibitions were the ones who did not really carry the local character or local flavor. And so listening to the presentations of the three experts, and not many, nobody talked about some specific nature of the local flavor. So I wonder whether the art of those areas have started to change, or so maybe because of the influence of the globalization or whatever, and so they have lost the local color. Or so Kida-san, so Japanization, how can we see Japanization? So Kato Shorin Jin, the detailed report was made in Taiwan, Japanization or assimilation. So if there are some works of art that serves as the testimony of assimilation or Japanization of the style of art, I would like to know it. Next, please. And now, so all of you provided the very detailed and presentation based on your very firm analysis. And what was quite impressive was, so all three of you used the slides composed with just letters and mono color slides. So I'm based in the art museum, so I always think of exhibitions. I'm always looking for good work of art, so even for regular exhibits, because we cannot survive without pieces of art. And so what's regrettable for me is that we could not see so many colorful work of art in your presentation. And those of you who visit the Asian Art Museum are mostly attracted to Asian contemporary art, and China, Taiwan, and Korea have so very colorful and vivid the contemporary art. So rest assured. And so just recently, and so I have come up with some the excellent works. So I would like to share with you some of them. And this is the print work by Okubo Hajime about Manchurian the art exhibition. And I'm not quite sure, but then so whether these are identical or the same from the same block, but and so I'm not so probably. So this is the only one surviving piece of art, what is directly linked to Manchurian exhibition. So Hyogo Prefectural, the art museum, they could have this as part of the exhibition, and because it was found later, so after that touring exhibition started. So sorry. So while criticizing you for using monochrome pictures only, but I use monochrome picture as well. And in Nogata city of the Fukuoka prefecture, and this is the work of Liu Ronfeng in the Nogata. It is stored at the number 3 junior high school of Nogata, and Liu Ronfen, as a father, was naturalized as a Japanese citizen. So therefore, he had some relations with the Manchurian government. So there are some surviving the pieces of art of Liu Ronfen. There was a rumor that he was a spy, and after the war, and his whereabouts is not known. So therefore, he is an unknown the painter. And then this Nogata Junior High School. So this site was the training school to send experts to Manchuria. And then the architecture style of this building was done by a Japanese architect who did the building in Manchuria as well. And on the right-hand side, and this is about the Yazaki Ichio ji, and so he submitted this work from Dalian to Bunten. So this is the drawing of Genguk Chungmyo, like Yasukuni Shrine of Japan. And so this one was featured is the fourth, the Ministry of Education's the exhibition. And Akaba Suekichi, they drew the Sugho's the white horse. And so Akaba is a Japanese painter who served as the committee member at the Manchurian exhibition. And so he's quite well known for his sketches during the Manchurian era. And so this the works of art was especially selected at Manchurian exhibition. And so we still have the surviving sketches of the photos by Akaba during the Manchurian era. So there may be some chances that so we will organize new exhibitions or some research activities based on our findings. Now, so one piece of art from Korea by Kim Gi-chan, and this is a winning work of the Chosun, the exhibition, and I was searching for this for many years, but 5 years ago, it was put to auction. A National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art Korea now has it. And the left-hand side is the by Huan Tu Shui, and this is also a winning work of the Teiten. And so the owner of this sculpture has agreed to make it to release it to public. And so Dr. Wang and mentioned Shiotsuki Toho in his presentation. And so the one at the top right is by Shiotsuki Toho, and it was a winning work of the first Titan. So probably this is the only surviving work of Shiotsuki, which was submitted to Titan. And the bottom right is the by the Chen Cheng-bo, which was given as a gift to Ueyama Manoshin, who was the Governor General of Taiwan. So 6 years ago, and it was found at a library in Hofu, where Ueyama was born. And so last year, Taiwan, the contemporary art exhibition in Taiwan. So the recently found the artworks were shown, and including the two the paintings which I have shown before. So I wanted to see it, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, I could not travel there to have a look at it. But I know that some experts and artists are participating in this session remotely. So I look forward to have a discussion with with them. And also, I would like to invite them to give us some information if they have any that would complement my presentation. So, well, I don't know if my presentation is well prepared, but thank you very much for your kind attention. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Ravanchai-kun. And so based on the wealth of information and experience, and so we have learned a lot. And also, thank you for the comments, and also some points to be improved for the three presenters' presentation. Thank you. Now, and so we are a little bit behind schedule, but still, we would like to have a short break here. No. So how about the 6:50? Okay. Okay. How about 6:55? Okay. Could you come back to the table by 6:55? But before we start a break, so three presenters and Ms. Rawan Chaikun, and if you want to, have some exchange of words before, and we would like to just so yeah. So we're not going to just start the second round right away, but so we would like to pick up questions, as many questions as possible for those of you from the floor and also from the Zoom. And the list of participants include the very important individuals and the leading the researchers and the artists in this field, and also the up-and-coming researchers. So many individuals have participated in this session. So therefore, I would like to receive their questions and comments as much as possible. Thank you very much for your cooperation. And so you can probably send us your comments or questions through Q&A functions. But mind you, we may not be able to just pick up all the questions, but we would like to try our best to pick up your comments and questions. All right. Now, okay, let's have a short break, 5 minutes. Well, the discussion will start at 6:55. Okay, thank you very much for your kind cooperation.
So Mr. Inaga, please. Thank you. So looking at what an Asian the museum looks like. So I'm sorry. I'm really sorry I can't be there physically. So in 30 minutes, and we have and the time for discussion. So as I mentioned earlier. So we have received and two questions, and it can be shared with you, Mr. Kajiya. So Kajiya-san. So maybe you put something in the different section and from Q&A. So if you need to speak up, and I will ask you to. And so let me briefly comment. on that. So that this is an official, the government-sponsored exhibition and competition. So the painting, the art competition. So that this is all the really meaningful presentations, and so that behind that, so that this is a potential to expand into something so the involving and the cultural elements. And for one thing, 1990, the year of 1919. So that this is the year in China, the Goshi movement. So that this is the anti-Japan campaign was launched with the students majorly. And this is not an independent anti-Japanese Japan movement, and in Korean Peninsula as well. And when we look at the India, so the Gandhi, and you're familiar with the Gandhi, and so the depicted in the movie, and he was martyred in the same year. And 1919, and it is the year of the Versailles. So the Versailles agreement was signed, and in the Versailles, the organization and organized according to that, and in which the Japanese was so the status of Japan improved, and so ironically speaking, and Asia is one. So that this is so that well known, and this sentence is from Okakura Tenshin, but in 1902, so that this was when, so that this was to express and demanding the solidarity of Japan. So ironically, I said, but so that this was achieved and realized in 1919. So against the colonial policy. So that this was this was presented by Asia in the year of 1919. And for one thing, Grochon's kin is a figure who is a potterist in India. So that a very close relationship with Yanagi Muneyoshi in Japan, and he visited Japan to learn the pottery, and as you can see so his name suggests he's second Sikh. So and Yanagi. So the established and so the folk folk art and museum, and he established Yanagi Muneyoshi, and there so that he invested a lot of money in that museum, and Mr. Shin. And this is the solidarity among the Asian countries. So in the exhibition as well. So the many different places in Asia, and onward 1919 onward, so that this is interesting to look at the situation and transverse and perspective, and so that maybe so that beyond the framework of this symposium, so that in the 1980s, and this is from Bangladesh, and there are the great, the huge number of the students came from Bangladesh to Japan, and some of them are learning about and arts, and they became in the 60s or 70s, and so they became really the prestigious position. And so to get out of the UK control. So that was the motivation was so that they're studying abroad in Japan, and motivated them to get out of the UK control. And the installation is a buzzword. And what they learned when they came to Japan, the term of installation. And so in Komaba and Tokyo, there used to be the international student hall. And so the maybe the Mishima mentioned, and they used to be the daughter of the kingdom of Cham, and they used to reside then. And so there, and so the students residing in that hall, and so they came back to their hometown and to become a really important position and in their homeland. And in Singapore as well, so the artists are in Asia, so that they there have been a lot of studies studying those the artists in Asia, across Asia, so that in from a transversal and a perspective. So that this is so the many so the curators of the Fukuoka Asian museums are involved in that work, and so including under this and. So the current situations, and I'd like to pick up questions. So, okay, so the global art history and is so the global and to acquire the gain and the perspective of global. So that maybe and from the social discourse. So tried to so they get integrate everything in one and from those that kind of perspective. And that said, the Asian rather than Asian is one. So that this is a resistance and against the unifying control. So that it is a good an opportunity and to remember that. So that maybe in order. So the first, so the Kida-san, so that do you have something to add? And so that if you have any questions and would like to ask Kida-san, feel free to fill in. So the Alamanjai-kun-san mentioned about the shikunshi and for classic flowers and uses the subjects of the Oriental painting. So the calligraphy and the show and the shikunshi. So the how so the do they handle that? So that in the first and in the second exhibitions there was no shikunshi and only the show and the calligraphy and the ink and the water painting, and after that the shikunshi and joined. And in the first place, the shikunshi and is the using the tools or the technique of the calligraphy and the show. And in the context, and so the in so the rather than a modern art or modern painting, so the after all, so the abolishment of the calligraphy department is a big topic. And so the not in the case of the abolishment of shikunshi, and the shikunshi and in actually as in the 11th exhibition it was incorporated in another department. So around the 10th or the exhibitions. So the younger generation, so the after the learning the art in Japan, so they classify the art and this is art and this is not art. The classification, the concept of classification determined or led to the abolishment of the calligraphy and the department. And so the shikunshi was incorporated into the Oriental art department. And so that maybe so the traditionally and the shikunshi and the show was considered as the one set, and abolishment of the show department. So that I picked up the first. So how do you deal with the calligraphy and ink water painting? So that in the Kinkipun. So in the scholar and who is on the studying of on the Korean modern art history, and he went through and the articles of the newspaper, and it's not the intention of the government general. So that maybe the concept of the calligraphy has been changed. So my presentation, I hope, presented a kind of answer. So they presented the material, a specific material, and how so the people they dealt. And so that this is the Q&A questions. So that I'm sorry, so that I made up a little bit too many slides, so I couldn't afford to mention it. And in the document of Kato Shorinjin, so the why the newspaper or interpersonal the relationship the words that I picked up, so that there has been a discussion and so far, so that I need to, so that it is important to describe the position of Kato. So he was felt really alienated or isolated because he was not a graduate of the Tokyo National University of Art, and he was awarded with Teiten, and so that he so that personally so they mentioned I can sort of go along with them, and I cannot go along with them. But so like the article of the Keijon and the Daily, so that it was on a database that digitalized, and those so that include a lot of articles so the written by Tadakizo, and so the like it or not, and he acknowledged, he recognized the so the talent of Kato as an artist, and he was awarded with an exhibit, and so that behind that there were many things to consider. So those things and so that makes us think. So maybe under 20 minutes, so that I put a lot of things in my 20-minute presentation. So the associated with the existing studies, I picked up the relevant issues. I'm not sure if I answered this question or not.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for your presentations, and Ms. Rawanchai-kun and Mr. Inaga, thank you very much. And now, so I'm not an expert of the art of those days, and then so I don't mean to be presumptuous, but so I used to study American art scenes. That was start of my career. And then I started studying about imperialistic approaches, and that imperialistic approaches had did not work quite well, or created some the side effects, and then some of the attempts did not work as the rulers wished, and so even though so those areas are independent, however, so those exhibitions were, in a way, linked to the art scenes of Japan. And I was quite interested in what the significance of those exhibitions are. And Kida-san made a presentation about Kato, and so even though he was not from Tokyo Art School, but he was quite active in the field of art, I was quite interested. So I think it was because his work was selected or win the exhibition, or is there a possibility that there were some workings by himself in order to raise his status as an artist? Thank you very much for your question. Well, Kato Shorinjin and Tadakizo and Yamada Shinichi, so those are about the same age, so only 1 year different in age. And so those two, Tadakizo and others, were supported by wealthy individuals, like economic community. And Kato they went to Chosun, and then so when he was somewhere around 20 years old, but he has contributed articles to magazines issued for the Japanese residents there, and so therefore he was well received by those writing for newspapers and also the local business communities. So he probably is joined together with those gentlemen to visit various places to meet with influential people there. So probably he had a good sense to cut out his position in the society, and also he made the guidebook, and then the patron was the Tatsuma. The Myeongdong in Korea, and so that the patron was the owner of a big grocery store in Myeongdong, and so Kato himself so relied on that human connections or human relations. So in Japan, it's unthinkable for a guy like Kato to become quite successful in that field, and so he had a winning work in Teiten, and then he also, so there was a rumor that then he showed his consideration to the rulers. Kim No also produced a winning work for this exhibition, and so there was also a rumor that so his work sort of contributed to the enhanced assimilation policy of Japanese government, but so producing the winning work for the Teiten, so because of that they raised their status. However, so even before their works were selected for Teiten, they were engaged in a lot of activities like speeches in public and publicizing his opinions and comments. So a lot of just, things are at work in the background, I think. So that needs to be studied further. In Naga-san, please. Sorry for the technical issues, and sorry for the noise. And so Tomi Reiko so gave a generally held view, and based on the testimony, and then so if you want to restore the work of art, you really have to be very cautious and considerate, and so if some of you will be able to answer that, we'd like to pick up that question. And Yazaki was also respected in China, and his work survived in the art the academy in China, and then the other one was well received in Hokkaido, and human relations. I think the looking at the human relations surrounding the artist may be quite interesting. Now the time is running out, but now Dr. Wang. So if you want to compliment us, or do you have any supplementary presentations? Are you able to see? Dr. Wang is gone. Yes. Okay, so is it better to go ahead? Okay, so before he comes back on, I would like to ask Egawa-san. Well, Egawa-san, if you have something to add to your presentation, please. Well, it's not a supplementary answer.
So that one, I'm sorry. I was pointed out that so that I didn't show any picture of the works. So that I feel most comfortable with the works and the picture in the background, but I failed to do that to include the photo of works, and so that this is not a question to me and the Shikunshi and the show. So what about so that in the situation of the Manchurian and art. And so the Shikunshi and is the accepted eye and the Oriental picture, and whereas the show was accepted in the show department, and in so that character and reflect the characters of Manchuk. So there had been a consideration for the ethnic groups, but so there may be at the fourth or fifth exhibition. So this is a hanging roll exhibition, and hanging roll and works were rejected. So maybe the spirit of foundation of the Manchuk. So the maybe compatible with the times and with the spirit of Manchuk or the times or the era. And should be accepted, and others are not accepted, and a local flavor, a local color. So the east northern part of China. So this was a big topic. And so the local color and the flavor, and to be the how to and reflect the local color in their work. And so that this is always sort of talked and among an artist in DLN, and in the exhibition of Manchurian and art exhibition as well. And Akaba Seikichi is one of them, and Kaimi Hachiro as well. And he used to be working in a collaboration with Akaba. And after coming back to Japan, and they worked really actively, and they were discovered in the Manchurian and art exhibitions. And so that so that this is what I remembered, and I was reminded by the people's comments. So the materials 建国中霊廟 So the was really collected and is existing in Fukuoka Asian Museum. I didn't know that, but this was back then the journal so they put the color and a picture and on that work. And this is the rather the newly built building at the time in 1930s. So which is very much closely related to the Japanese control of Manchuria. And so the onsen they cannot be contacted, so that you cannot try contacting him, but not yet. So the questions. So let me speak. So the Pansan and Suki. So if we cannot the Osan cannot come back, so that I will put those questions to him. So I'm sorry the time is running out, but so do you have anything to add from Rawan Chang-kun-san? Thank you. So nothing in particular, but so that I really feel grateful for having this kind of opportunity. And Kajiya Sensei first said, so that to the dispatching on the Japanese as the. So that to speak about all those colonies. So that maybe it is risky to present to speak up. So that from the a former sovereignty and a nation. And I have been talking with some of my Korean friends on this issue, so that this is one of my biggest concerns. So that it is risky and but on the contrary, so the doing nothing is really really negative attitude. So that it is really important to implement, to carry out this project, even though I realize it's a big concern. I'm sorry. So this is the cultural activities, so that in the colonial rule, so that can be applied. This is applied, and this is the study of So that this is a study of is something to do with maybe some admit the colonial rule. So but from academic viewpoint, even though with academic viewpoint, it cannot be accepted, and in the current curation and management of the museum is not the exception. So the 1937 in Manchurian and Fujiyama Ichiro. So that this is this is a deputy and the director, and he did a lot of work in managing the museum. But so that he was, and so the villa of and the Lama, and it was 37 and 1977. And so the Yasui Totaro depicted that the building, and the bird view was exhibited. And so because in the same year, Yokoyama Taikan traveled to Rome, and so the whole held the exhibition in there, and to exhibit Japanese paintings, to promote the friendship with the Manchurian. So he exhibited the work depicting the Manchurian traditional buildings, and so until then, the Manchurian, the Manchuk war had not been recognized worldwide, but that was the momentum to the present the status and the presence the presence of Manchuria. So that we needed to look at those in the context, and this is relevant to the current situations. So from the moderator, I add something. Okay, so over to you. So the Ms. Ikeda and Ms. Maeda, thank you very much for your cooperation. So I express my sincere gratitude. And now over to you and Doi-san. And so thank you very much, and to all the speakers and interpreters as well. This is